So we have a 1997 Dodge Stratus, and the blower fan stopped working on low, medium, and high, but it worked on the extra high position. I've got the vehicle ignition off right now, but there's low, medium, high, and in the extra high position it bypasses the blower resistors and goes on to full speed. So the extra high speed did work in this vehicle. So I had already started taking the vehicle apart, and before I decided to make a video here, and I took off this cover plate underneath the glove box, which is just held in with two pop-in rivets. You just pull the head part of this up. The remainder should actually have stayed in place. There's one up here that is still in place. The blower resistor is held in place with two 8mm screws. I've already taken off the screws and popped the connectors off. There's a locking tab on each of the connectors that you have to depress before they'll pull out. And then once the screws are out, the blower resistor comes out. Okay, I've taken the blower resistor assembly into the house, and I see that there's actually 3 resistors in here, and I would assume that those are for the low, medium, and high positions. And if you can see, there's also a 4th device in there, which I believe is a thermistor. It's probably a safety cutout. And because I took an electronics technology program years ago and a technologist, I feel comfortable in cutting that device out and having a closer look at it. All 3 lower speeds quit on this vehicle, so that's why I'm assuming that it is the thermistor and probably not the actual resistors themselves. The top part of the blower cage here is held on, it looks like, with 4 tabs. I'm going to try to attempt to remove them to get access to that thermistor inside. So now I've taken the top part of the cage off, which exposes the interior, and you can see the thermistor in there better now. I will attempt to cut it out and see if I can find some markings on it. I've been calling this thing a thermistor. It is actually called a thermal cutout. And I'm going to clip the leads close to the body of it so that I can possibly reuse the existing leads. Okay, I've cut the device out, and there is some marking on it which I can't zoom in on here, but it says 110C, which is 110 degrees Celsius. Normally these thermal cutouts have continuity. In other words, if I hold my meter leads together, it should be 0 ohms. This one that I cut out here today is open. There's no connection from one point to the other. So it's a safety cutout device. So what I'm actually going to do, I don't have another one of these around right now. They're like a 50-cent device. I'm just going to bypass it. And do so at your own risk. I'll mention that this device is probably meant for if the blower motor were to quit completely and there's no air circulations, these resistors would probably get quite hot. So the thermal protection is there to shut down the circuit. In my case, I don't have another thermal cutout here, and a person could buy the whole blower resistor assembly, but I'm just going to bypass this by connecting the 2 leads together here where the thermal cutout used to be. What I've done, I've taken a pair of needle nose pliers and I've set the leads next to each other with the top pointing up, and I'm going to see if I could put something like a small threaded nut on it. So I ended up using a number 6x32 nut to connect those 2 leads together, making sure that it's not touching any of the resistors inside. I might mention that I'm making this video from Canada, and it's minus 25 Celsius out today here in the winter time, and that's why I'm anxious to get my heater blower working again on the lower speeds, because just the high speed was kind of annoying having full speed all the time. So I'll have the low, medium, and high positions back again. A person could also just order the complete blower resistor assembly and put the new one in. That was probably the easiest for most people, but anyways, this is my fix. Final note, make sure that the resistors inside this little protective cage aren't touching the edge of it if you decide to do my bypass type fix. So you wouldn't want those resistors to touch the side because it would get hot. One final thing I'll mention on my Stratus, that the first position is super slow. You barely can hear the motor turning. Second position, you can hear it. Third. And the last position is, again, with all those resistors bypassed. And this one was originally working.